things are getting even more suspicious. Some additional stunning red flags have surfaced in connection with the alleged incident at the White House Correspondents Dinner this weekend, where it's now alleged a 31-year-old individual from California named Cole Allen was involved in a potential shooting that was allegedly thwarted with respect to Donald Trump and Trump's cabinet members. I was reviewing the court docket to see some of the updates, and I found some stunning developments, like the magistrate judge is already warning the Trump regime DOJ about possible contempt sanctions. You have Cole Allen's lawyers saying he's being deprived of his ability to consult with lawyers, that the Trump DOJ and Trump federal government is preventing him from contacting his own counsel. I found some filings that show that the lawyers for Cole Allen are demanding immediately some exculpatory evidence based on statements that they say that Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche is making publicly that appear to be inconsistent with what is seen on the surveillance footage. And of course, we have the Washington Post analysis, where they brought in a lot of forensic analysts who do forensic audio analysis, forensic video analysis. And this Washington Post report says that they don't believe there was any indication that Cole Allen was involved in actually firing his weapon at all, or to the extent his weapon was discharged, it was not his weapon that ultimately hit one of these Secret Service agents. It was most likely friendly fire. But then late last night, NBC claimed to have an exclusive from so-called sources within the government that said they now actually believe that it was Cole Allen's shotgun that was involved in hitting one of these Secret Service agents, which is odd that they wouldn't come out and say that right away, because the ballistics from a shotgun versus a handgun would be pretty easy to decipher. You don't have to be a Second Amendment enthusiast to know the different type of ballistics between a shotgun and a handgun. Let's just go through this one by one. Now, of course, in all federal criminal prosecutions, the prosecution needs to turn over what's called Brady material. That's exculpatory evidence. That's part of the obligations in any prosecution. You turn over Brady material, exculpatory information that you may have. But what was startling that I found on the docket regarding Cole Allen is that the magistrate judge is already basically threatening the Trump regime with sanctions if they don't comply with Brady. Clearly, this magistrate judge is aware that the Trump regime's MO, their modus operandi, is they file criminal charges and then often don't turn over exculpatory evidence, which has frequently led to cases being dismissed. So take a look at this minute order from the magistrate judge. Minute order as to Cole Thomas Allen. As required by Rule 5F, the United States is ordered to produce all exculpatory evidence to the defendant pursuant to Brady versus Maryland and its progeny. Not doing so in a timely manner may result in sanctions, including exclusion of evidence, adverse jury instructions, dismissal of charges, and contempt proceedings. And that's signed by the federal magistrate judge. Now, that's just a basic restatement of law, but I don't see why that would need to be posted like that, because it's obviously an obligation by the federal government. But this magistrate judge knows that this DOJ hides the ball over and over again. Then you take a look at this docket and you find that Cole Allen's lawyer says he's being deprived of the ability to consult with them without being monitored ahead of a major detention hearing, which is taking place today. Emergency motion to permit contact legal visit. Cole Thomas Allen, through undersigned counsel, respectfully requests this honorable court order the Department of Corrections at the D.C. jail and its staff to permit counsel to visit with Mr. Allen in a manner that is consistent with his right to counsel under the Sixth Amendment. Folks, it is a constitutional right he has to meet with his lawyers. So why is it that the Trump regime, that now is constantly talking about golden ballrooms after the alleged incident, ending No Kings protests, trying to push forward their legislative agenda of hate and voter suppression, using this incident as a way to say, well, this probably inspired James Comey. So while they're pushing that narrative, as the regime is pushing that propaganda, they are preventing Cole Allen from meeting with his lawyer as required by the Sixth Amendment. What are you scared of? What do you have to hide? We're all entitled to legal counsel in criminal cases under the Sixth Amendment, and Cole Allen has opted to be represented by the federal public defender. And I might add, the public defender's been quite aggressive. This is the argument that's filed by the public defender. Of all the rights that an accused person has, the right to be represented by counsel is by far the most pervasive, for it affects his ability to assert any other rights they may have, citing to the Sixth Amendment. Indeed, if no actual assistance for the accused defense is provided, then the constitutional guarantee has been violated. In addition, it is well established that an accused does not enjoy the effective aid of counsel if he is denied the right of private consultation with him. Despite the guarantees of the Sixth Amendment, Trump's Department of Correction staff have refused Mr. Allen the opportunity to communicate with counsel in a way that protects the confidentiality owed to him. On April 28, 2026, undersigned counsel attempted to meet with Mr. Allen ahead of the detention hearing set for April 30th, 2026. Counsel initially were forced to wait for nearly an hour for unknown reasons, despite them being told they would be able to meet with Mr. Allen in a private attorney room, as is routine and required for confidential and privileged communications. The Department of Correction staff informed counsel that they would have to meet in what is essentially a public location. Specifically, Mr. Allen was forced to sit inside of a lock cage in full 5-point restraints and speak over a phone, of which there is only one, to be able to confer with counsel. Counsel were forced to sit in an open lobby area with jail staff and other attorneys standing nearby who could overhear the entirety of counsel's side of the conversation. When counsel asked for an explanation, Captain Haney advised that it was administrative and at the direction of the warden. Counsel asked if the requirement was related to anything that Mr. Allen did or said while in the Department of Correction custody, and Captain Haney replied in the negative. Counsel's inability to have a privileged and confidential conversation with Mr. Allen is an obvious and grave violation of his rights under the Sixth Amendment. Moreover, members of the defense team were required to share one handheld device with low-quality audio that requires elevated voices to hear. This type of meeting with Mr. Allen falls well short of what the Constitution guarantees of every defendant. The absurdity of an initial attorney-client meeting in front of correctional staff and unrelated attorneys had no stated purpose and was characterized as merely administrative. As the court is aware, the D.C. jail has housed many high-profile defendants, but none, to counsel's knowledge, have ever been denied this essential right in the manner counsel experienced on April 28th. In other words, this has never happened before, ever, with lots of high-profile criminal defendants throughout many, many years. This is Washington, D.C. People have been arrested for a lot of very, very serious things. Counsel has reached out to the general counsel, and two members of his staff, General Counsel Towns and Deputy General Counsel Shannon, are both out of office. Now they're saying the Department of Correction lawyers are not even there. So now the lawyers for Cole Allen rush to the court and they demand an emergency order. And the court grants it. Upon consideration of Mr. Allen's motion, it is hereby ordered that the motion is granted, and it is further ordered that the D.C. Department of Corrections shall permit Mr. Allen and his defense team to have unrestricted legal visits during the pendency of this case. And it's signed by the magistrate judge. The Trump regime already lost a major motion in this case that they are claiming is a slam dunk. Could you believe that? Also, Cole Allen's lawyer says that Acting Attorney General Blanche's public statements suggest the government may have exculpatory evidence about whether Allen fired his shotgun and, if he did, whether his shot struck a Secret Service officer. So this is a letter that was submitted yesterday by Cole Allen's lawyer at the Federal Public Defender's Office. They're doing a really good job already, and they're raising major red flags in this court filing. This is a letter right here to the United States Attorney's Office in the District of Columbia, and here's what Cole Allen's lawyers say. We were pleased to hear your pronouncement that you intend to take your Brady obligations seriously in Mr. Allen's case. We trust that you agree that your responsibilities include the timely disclosure of potentially exculpatory facts. As you know, we have received no discovery and have been provided no information about the government's theory of the case, other than that which is contained in the complaint and your detention memorandum. Because you make factual assertions that appear to be either contradicted or at least somewhat undermined by statements by law enforcement, we make the following requests and ask you to provide answers prior to the detention hearing. Thus, pursuant to Brady versus Maryland and other similar cases, the Due Process Act and the local rules, we request the following. We understand that Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche has made public statements as a representative of the prosecution. We noticed that you did not describe the shotgun ammunition in your detention memorandum. We request that you provide a description of the ammunition because some of Acting Attorney General Blanche's statements indicate that the recovered ballistic evidence is inconsistent with aspects of the government's theory, evidence collected by the government, and/or statements made by witnesses. We are entitled to this information prior to the detention hearing. Please provide the following information as it relates to the alleged shooting of the Secret Service officer VG. Any information in law enforcement's possession that Mr. Allen did not shoot VG, any information in law enforcement's possession that Mr. Allen did not fire a shot or in the general direction of VG, any video, including any video enhanced by law enforcement that reveals footage that is inconsistent with the government's theory that Mr. Allen fired the shotgun, any video, including any video enhanced by law enforcement that reveals footage that is inconsistent with the government's theory that VG struck by ammunition from the shotgun, any statements by any witness that are inconsistent with the government's theory that Mr. Allen fired the shotgun, any statements by any witnesses that are inconsistent with the government's theory that VD was struck by ammunition from that shotgun, any physical evidence recovered from the scene, including cartridge casings and spent projectiles recovered inconsistent with the government's theory that Allen fired the shotgun, any physical evidence recovered from the scene, including cartridge casings and spent projectiles recovered inconsistent with the government's theory that VG was struck by ammunition from that shotgun, any evidence recovered from VG, including equipment or clothing that is inconsistent with the government's theory that Mr. Allen fired the shotgun, any evidence recovered from VG, including equipment or clothing that is inconsistent with the government's theory that VG was struck by ammunition from the shotgun, all ballistic information thus far collected and analyzed that do not squarely support the government's theory of the case. We also request any information as to whom the government is alleging were the targets of this incident. In the detention memorandum, you reference, quote, high-ranking members of the U.S. government as the defendant's intended victims and the significant roles they play. Please identify the individuals that the government believes were the, quote, targets and intended victims. Specifically, please advise whether the government has ruled out Acting Attorney General Blanche and U.S. Attorney Pirro as targets and how the government has reached that conclusion. Please also provide any statements allegedly made by Mr. Allen. So you have Attorney General Blanche. When he was asked about, do you have the ballistics report? His response was, it would not surprise me if it turns out that our Secret Service agent was shot by the individual. It would not surprise me if, how do you not know that already? You don't know the difference between a shotgun ballistic and the residue there too, and a handgun, different caliber, different weapons, a lot of different circumstances. Should be probably one of the most basic things, but looks like they're lying. Here, play this clip.
So I understand that there is leaks around that, but I'm not going to get ahead of the work of the law enforcement. It would not surprise me if it turns out that that our Secret Service agent was shot by the individual who's currently been charged with that crime. But that is something that would be wildly inappropriate for me to comment on beyond saying just that. Just because when we know something, I'm sure that we will let the folks know. But I just want to get that right.
More from Todd Blanche here. This was the day before that. saying he has nothing to add on the ballistics test. Let's play this clip.
I wanted to ask you a quick question about, there's a number of other different types of conduct Comey has been accused of over the past. One of them is abuse of FISA warrants. I wanted to ask if there's anything that we could talk about today in regards to that. But on a separate matter, if I may ask, any more updates about the ballistics forensic analysis with the shooting that happened over the weekend?
So on the first question, no, there's nothing else to report about any investigations or anything involving Mr. Comey except the indictment that was returned today by the grand jury. I don't have anything further to talk about with the ballistics that are still being analyzed. And I said it yesterday, and every law enforcement member who is speaking on this issue is saying the same thing as they should, which is that this is an ongoing investigation with really, really smart experts trying to understand what happened in that shooting and where the bullets went and ended up and where the bullets came from. And once that is at a place where we can definitively say, to the extent we can definitively say, we will let you know.
And Evan Hill and others at the Washington Post reconstructed, or they looked at the better image of the video surveillance. And here's what Hill writes. This is from the Washington Post. A Secret Service officer fired 4 times at Cole Allen and in the direction of other security personnel as he charged a security checkpoint. A post-review of surveillance footage has found there was no indication on the footage that Allen fired his weapon. A Secret Service officer fired 4 times, but no indication from the footage that Allen fired his weapon. So what is even going down right now? So after that story breaks, then there's an article from the NBC News shortly thereafter that goes, Secret Service officer was hit by gunfire from suspect at White House. Sources say investigators have determined the officer wasn't struck by friendly fire from another member of law enforcement, according to 3 law enforcement officials familiar with the case. Now, the problem here is the Trump regime lies about literally everything. So you have that filing that was made today. You have the court's order regarding potential contempt. You have the Washington Post analysis. They used both audio forensic analysis, some top people, and reconstructed the video. And Washington Post with some top people, like the kind of people who, when I was a litigator, I would hire as an expert. When Washington Post went to those people, they're saying Cole Allen wasn't the shooter, or didn't shoot rather. And then on the other hand, you now have the Trump regime leaking to NBC. So folks, we don't know what's happening. We know the Trump regime lies about everything. We know they've used this alleged incident to push ballrooms, to push taxpayer funding ballrooms, to push banning No Kings protests, to push all of this propaganda. So you be the judge, but I'm just going to go through the facts. Fact. That's what we do here on the MeidasTouch. Do me a favor, hit subscribe, help us get to 7 million subscribers by hitting subscribe. You may think you're subscribed, but you may actually be subscribed. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.